The Zenith model 7500W Franken-Chancellor with Space Command 1600. Now you're probably wondering what I mean by Franken-Chancellor and by Space Command 1600. This cabinet model is the Chancellor, and it's a Franken-Chancellor because someone put a 1965 Zenith television into a 1963 Zenith cabinet. Surprisingly, it's basically a bolt-in modification, aside from the fact that the front bolt locations for the chassis are different and will need to be re-drilled because the people who did the retrofit did not properly account for that, among other things that I ended up having to resolve. What they did do, however, is they bothered to keep all of the original paperwork for both this set and the donor set that gave this its TV chassis. Well, the LP is actually something I had before I bought this. By the way, if anyone happens to have a copy of this Zenith record album that isn't almost rotted clean in half and missing its record, I'd like to have one of these. The original owners kept this one despite not having the record, and I'm pretty sure this is the original demonstration record that came with this console when they purchased it. So, what do I mean by Space Command 1600? Well, Zenith on their sets from the factory offered Space Command 600, which controlled just the television. I have taken the factory Space Command 600 that this television came with and expanded it to also operate the audio system on the console. Something that Zenith only rarely did. I believe they had a monochrome, or black and white in the vernacular usage, television stereo console that had a Space Command 1000 system that controlled both the stereo and the television. However, to my knowledge, I don't know of any Zenith color televisions that also had remote control of stereo system from factory. To understand the Space Command 1600 mod, we must first understand how the Space Command 600 operates. We have 4 buttons: channel lower, channel higher, mute, and on-off volume. On-off volume operates a stepper relay that has 4 positions: volume minimum, volume medium, volume maximum, and off. Mute has 2 positions as well, and will mute all sound. Channel lower and higher do what you would expect, but they also have an additional feature. When the mute button is pressed and the television is muted, the channel higher and channel lower buttons adjust the hue control to redder or greener. The crux of my modification is expanding upon the idea of the mute button changing what the channel higher and channel lower buttons do. There are 2 modes, normal and TV stereo mode. In normal mode, when the television is on, all the normal functions of the remote operate as they would in a factory original television set. So we got mute, volume low, medium, high, off, channel lower, channel higher. Channel higher button on this remote is not in good shape. And mute, we can watch the hue potentiometer right here. Now in normal mode, the stereo cannot be operated by the remote when the television is on. So if I want to operate the stereo in normal mode, I have to turn the TV off. You see that little light down there has went from green, which is TV mode, to red. Red is the mode in which channel higher and channel lower operate power off and power on. Channel higher also is a reject button for the record changer, which will cause the record changer to drop and begin playing the next record in the queue. So let's power it on. We can see the stereo has just come on. And if we hit mute, we change the function indicator to being white. White is volume mode, so let's just learn more at nervivehealth.com. There we go. Remote's being a little bit cantankerous, but
tech gift for my husband that will make him.
And if I hit mute again, we go from white to blue LED, and that indicates that we are in tuning mode, where channel higher and channel lower on the TV remote will operate the tuning of the radio. Let's switch remotes. Here we see the remote tuning in operation. I'm having to use a different remote because the channel up, channel down keys are very worn out on my original Zenith remote. You get the idea of how the remote tuning works. So no matter what the channel lower, channel higher buttons are controlling, if I turn on the TV while the remote receiver is in normal mode, it automatically powers off the stereo. The stereo pilot light is that little jewel centered underneath the TV section that only glows sort of an amber red. So the stereo will never be on when the TV is on when the remote receiver is in normal mode. Unless, of course, you walk up to the stereo and manually turn it on. The factory design of this remote has the stereo take over control of the speakers from the TV when the stereo is on, and the speakers go back to being under the control of the TV when the stereo is off. So there's an additional mode on the remote control receiver. This little switch down here I've added right now is in normal mode. If I switch the receiver to TV stereo mode, what ends up happening is that in normal mode, I can have both the stereo and the television on and under remote control at the same time. So for video sources that have a stereo audio output, I can feed the stereo audio output from the device into the tape input of the tuner, and I can run both the TV and the stereo at the same time, or I can run one at a time in that mode as well. The TV stereo mode basically allows me to do anything I would want to do, but it changes the behavior of the TV remote. The TV went on at the same time as the stereo no longer provides sound to the speakers, so the volume is controlled through the stereo. And there are, if we toggle through the mute, 4 modes now. There is stereo power on off. I'm going to turn that on. It's just stereo power on off mode is red. White is volume for the stereo, and essentially any audio you're going to get. Blue is for the radio tuner, which isn't useful if the TV is on, unless, of course, you have a simulcast program where the video is on television and the audio is on FM. I don't think they do those anymore, but they used to do those in the 80s, I believe. And green is television mode. In television mode, the mute button does not toggle between channel and tint operation of the channel higher, channel lower buttons. Instead, the volume on-off stepper relay does that. So let's do a channel lower. Oh, that's tint. Yeah, we're in tint mode right now. I can show you. Yeah, that's definitely tint. So, to go to channel, we hit volume, and then We are now on the channel that the DTV tuner box is set to. Previously we were watching something from my channel 13 Agile Modulator. So I'm remote controlling the stereo volume.
The Andy Griffith Show. Being Andy Griffith. With Ronnie Howard. Also starring John Young.
Now if I turn off the stereo, it'll go back to being the TV's audio system.
Floyd, can you take me for a haircut? Floyd ain't back there, Hood. He's out to lunch. We all wait.
So the TV remote operation is changed slightly in the TV stereo mode in that the mute button only switches between the remote control controlling TV operations of channel up and channel down, or the remote controlling audio operations of channel up and channel down. The on-off volume button ends up also operating mute. So you end up losing one of the stepper relay volume positions to being muted when you're in the TV stereo mode. But other than those changes, the TV remote operates almost normally in the TV stereo mode when the stereo is off. When the TV and stereo are both on its full function TV and stereo, when the stereo is on its full function stereo and the ability to turn the television on, and when the television is on alone, it's almost full function TV, but the old mute function is projected onto the sound function and takes away one of the sound stepper relay positions. I think it's a pretty good compromise for a mode that allows you to control both the TV and the stereo at once. One thing you'll notice when both the TV and stereo are off is that the mute switch no longer changes the functionality of the channel up and channel down keys control. The channel up and channel down keys are stuck in the stereo power on, power off mode. The green TV mode will only come on when the TV is powered on. The power on to the television enables that mode for the channel up, channel down to be active. And none of the stereo functions will operate, other than the stereo power on, stereo power off, while the stereo is powered off. So if I were to turn the stereo on, it enables the mute function selector behavior to function, and it automatically kicks the stereo to whatever mode the stepper relay that operates that was set to. So, TV mode, it's still, when the TV is on, which I turned it on just now, there are only two positions that the stepper relay can effectively enable. One is the TV control mode, which is the green light, and the other three positions are turning the stereo off and on. Now, if I turn the stereo on, all of a sudden the other functions on the stereo become possible. And if I turn the stereo back off and I mute again and kick the stepper relay to a different function, the stereo power on, stereo power off, I can turn the stereo on and it'll immediately go to that position. In order to implement remote control on the stereo head unit, what I had to do is take off the faceplate, the dial glass, the tone control dial, and the number plate and backing plate. Then I put gears on these two control shafts. I also installed a backing plate that bolts to the chassis. The backing plate has a series of gears that mesh with the two gears on the shafts of these controls and run these two control shafts to two additional shafts, which above chassis on the tuner, the tubes stick up like this. Above chassis on the tuner and between the tubes, The shafts run from the front of this chassis to the back of this chassis, which is actually the bottom with the way this particular chassis is mounted. At the bottom end, there are two remote control motors borrowed from a junked remote control television set of the style of motor used on the tint control of this console. Those motors drive the shafts of these two controls and turn them by remote. That is the one regret I have with the modifications I did to the remote system on this television. Couldn't come up with a means of remote operating the band switch. I would love to find a way of doing that, but unfortunately there's not enough space in here for me to get a gearing mechanism to control this band switch. At least not with the gears I have available to me, and the band switch requires a significant amount of torque to rotate, and I don't have any motors suitable for that right now. At some point in the future, I may attempt to figure out a method of remote controlling the band switch, but I've given up on that for the time being. Now, we'll go over to Phono and demonstrate the auto reject. Now the auto reject on this changer is not working the manual user control for reject off manual. Instead, it's operating the end of record trip lever that the tone arm normally trips. So the auto reject button cannot start the turntable. The turntable has to be manually started with this knob right here on the turntable. It can stop the turntable, however, if you just cycle through all of the records till the turntable auto shuts off. One of the things that's where it's at on this is there's a stylus cleaning brush on the armrest that automatically cleans between each cycle. I very much enjoy having a remote-controlled reject cycle on this. It's fun. So several years ago, I got it in my mind as a vintage TV collector who's also collected stereo consoles that I wanted the best of both worlds. I wanted a color TV stereo combo. And I really only can have maybe 2 or 3 of these in my collection with the space I've got available. So I asked myself what I wanted as the best thing for my collection. The set of specifications I came up with was a Danish modern cabinet, a stereo system with a powerful vacuum tube amplifier, and tuner, a round screen color television with remote control. And it's really hard to come up with that exact combination. This set represents the optimal electronic combination I could come up with. A Zenith 25MC43 color television, one of their best, with Space Command 600, a powerful 25 watt per channel push-pull 6BQ5 7K31 chassis audio amplifier, a I believe 12K31 tuner chassis. It could have had a reverb chassis on it, but this one doesn't have the optional reverb. I'd love to get that if I could. This set checks all the boxes on stereo combo for me, except for the cabinet. The Chancellor cabinet it's got is not bad, but I'd very much like to have something a lot more modernistic. And I do have a lead on one that I may pursue if it's still around at the time of year when I want to take that interstate trip. I do have one combo in my collection that definitely checks the box for cabinet style, though. I have a SC1600 Stockholm, which is a really beautiful radical Danish modern design that looks great. That one is a remote set as well, but the chintzy early germanium solid state amp doesn't do it for me. I don't like maintaining early solid state gear when I don't have to. I also briefly had a Packard Bell that was in a French provincial cabinet that didn't have remote. It had a blown speaker, which was causing mismatch in tonal balance of the audio and some other issues, and it worked pretty good, but it wasn't quite what I wanted, so I ended up selling it to another collector to make room for this guy. And this one's a keeper in my collection. Let's have a little bit of comedy to play us out.
This is a news bulletin from Radio America. A Russian has become the world's first spaceman. For a direct report, we take you now to our correspondent in Russia, Igor Migor. This is Igor Migor in Moscow. Major Yuri Gagarin, the world's first spaceman, is here with me right now. Major, will you please tell an anxious world the most impressive thing you saw while orbiting around the Earth? Please, sir, tell us what that means in English.
Blue moon.
Major, this historic space trip makes you Russia's greatest hero. How do you feel about it?
I don't know what to do. I feel so helpless.
Yuri, during your lonely nightmarish journey, who did you think about?
The worst person I know.
Major, when a meteor crossed your path and you almost collided with it, what was your first reaction? Yuri, during your tiring journey, did you have anything to do or anything to keep you busy? Major, while you were orbiting the Earth, you had a shortwave conversation with your wife. What were her first words? Major Gagarin, to the entire world, you are a hero. Already a mountain is named after you. What message do you have for the world? I'm sorry, Major, you're going to have to repeat that in English. I understand it has something to do with your future plans. Can you tell us exactly what you intend to do next? And finally, Major Gagarin, you've been kissed and embraced by Premier Khrushchev himself. All Russia stands at your feet. But if you could do one thing, just one thing, what would you do?
Let's see if I can capture the auto shut off at the end of the record. Yep. What's really impressive is most of the time the volume has been somewhere between 1 and 4. The amp in this console is very powerful. A good local FM rock station with the volume set to 6 is enough that standing 5 feet away from the console, I can feel the bass notes flapping my clothing and the concrete basement floor here shaking. At 10, it is positively earth-shaking and still loud and clear. An amazing piece of engineering, this. And that concludes the video. If you like this video about the Zenith Model 7500W Franken-Chancellor, please consider liking the video, subscribing to the channel for more content like this,